Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Full Court Press. We've had a lot of former Aggie basketball players, a lot of Aggie greats here on the show in recent days, and today we've got a couple. But the first of those is former Utah State forward Shawn Daniels. He's on the show. How you doing, Shawn?
I'm good, and yourself?
All right. I've had a chance to ask a lot of players, about their interactions with Stu Morrill. Obviously, that's a big part of why we're bringing on a lot of former Aggies to ask them about their experiences with Stu and, what his legacy is and his impact on a lot of different people, obviously, especially the players. I just wanted to start out obviously you came to Utah State back in 1999, Stu Morrill's second year. I guess just tell us about, how you ended up at Utah State and how that process went, meeting Stu Morrill and becoming part of, obviously, of Utah State.
It was a situation like I was at home one day, and then my coach, Coach Arcee, which he came to Utah State also. He calls me one day. He was like, "Hey, Utah State wants to offer you a scholarship," and I was like, all right, didn't know they was recruiting me, but okay. So I took my visit maybe a couple weeks later and enjoyed my visit, and the rest was history after that.
So I guess what was it about the visit that kind of convinced you to come, or was Utah State one of the few people who was recruiting? Like, it's just what led you to end up choosing Utah State and Stu Morrill?
Just the visit. The visit itself was. I had fun on my visit. Liked the campus, the direction they said the program was going, and things they wanted to do. Kind of helped. We were going to Maui that year, and that was one of the big selling points. Was I was going to have an opportunity to go play in Maui.
So you talk about the direction of the program. That was one of the things I wanted to ask you about because. Obviously, with Larry Eustace, the program had been in a good spot, but then Stu Morrill takes over. They do okay. They went like 15-13, but when you arrive at Utah State, there was maybe was there any worry about the direction of the program? Stu Morrill, obviously we know hindsight is 2020. You guys went like 28, and I think you had 28 wins your first year there. So obviously we know things turned out, but what were those early days like when? If there was any doubt about, if the program would continue heading in the right direction?
I mean, it wasn't, I don't know, it was just, I don't know, I just had a good feeling. I mean, once we got there and, start practicing and guys start, meshing together, we could see that we were going to, be all right. And then, once we start playing games and start winning and just the confidence just grew and,
So kind of tell me about these two teams because you went to the tournament 2 straight years, obviously won a tournament game in that 2000-2001 season. Just what was it about those two teams, obviously two of the more successful teams in Stu Morrill's early tenure? What was it about that team that made you guys so successful under Stu Morrill?
I think it was just guys that weren't selfish. I mean, we played the right way. We listen to coach, the system they have for us. I mean, we didn't have any selfish guys. I mean, everybody was about, the team. Guys shared the ball. When one guy had a good game, the next guy had a good game, a different game, no one's ever upset. I think that was one of the biggest things was that and just, the players that we had. I mean, everybody kind of played off each other.
So we actually had a chance to talk to Bernard Rock earlier, and he talked about how a bunch of the guys that came into the team were a bunch of guys who were all used to being the guy, and then they all had to come together and learn how there's not one guy, there's everybody. I guess what was that process like for you guys, all meshing together to be a team where you got 4 players, 5 players that are averaging about 9 points, between 9 and 12 points per game.
I think it was 8 of us that came in that year, and they were all coming from junior college, and we're all used to being, the 1 or 2 guy on our team, and so that was one thing that coaches was always just drilled in us, we had to, play as a team, and everybody just came together and just played together. I mean, we just, played off each other. Everybody, accepted their roles and played the roles that we had.
So tell me about that NCAA tournament win in 2001, because at this point it stands pretty unique in Utah State history. It's not the only NCAA tournament win, but it's the only one, this century. I guess, was there something different about your guys' team where you were able to break through, as opposed to a lot of later teams? A lot of Aggie teams made the tournament, but none of them been able to get a win.
Yeah, I just think it was that year, and it was the matchup. I mean, we thought we matched up well with them. I mean, they had a big man, Ken Johnson, that we all knew what he could do that year and what he had been doing. But I just think everybody else, we thought we can handle everybody else, and we just came together, played the game plan. I think we went to overtime, I believe, that game.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, we went to overtime. So, I mean, it was just one of those games that, we played well. We weren't intimidated. We just went out and played our game.
Again, we're talking with Shawn Daniels, former Utah State forward, one of the greats of the Stu Morrill era. I've heard a lot of people talk about, how big men love playing in, the Stu Morrill system. Obviously, leading scorer and rebounder of those teams, playing, down in the paint. I guess, what was it about Stu Morrill's system that people talk about forwards liking to play in that system? What was it about his system that made it enjoyable to play in?
Well, I think for me it was just early on preseason. Like, he came to me, he was like, "Hey, I'm gonna just give you the freedom to kind of do what you can do." Like he allowed me to bring the ball up court off rebounds. A lot of people, and sometimes it created a mismatch because, they weren't, a lot of teams weren't having their forward bring the ball down court. So, Rock would get out and run the wing, and I would throw it up to him, or Tony would be on the wing, Dion running the wing, and, Dimitri running down the middle floor. And I think some of those things is what helped me, succeed there was, coaches giving me the confidence of like, "Hey, do your thing. If you feel you can do it, then, go ahead."
So obviously, Stu Morrill having the court named after him, but obviously the venue, a very important part of Utah State history. But just what were your experiences there in the Spectrum? And I guess I'll also kind of add this on there, like, I've wanted to ask a lot of players, like, what's your favorite story that happened in the Spectrum? Your favorite Spectrum moment from your time playing at Utah State?
Ooh, favorite moment. I think like when I came on my visit and then I got there, it was late at night, and Coach Verlin took me in there, and I was amazed, and he was just like, "Hey, just imagine 10,000 people in here," and I was just like, wow, because that was the biggest arena I had been in at that time, and I'm like, wow. And then I think one of the biggest moments was we beat Utah there, and the crowd was crazy that night. I think who else? I know we beat Boise State one night. The crowd was pretty electric. I think I have to go with one of those two moments.
So kind of along with that, I've wanted to also ask a lot of the players, like, what's your favorite Stu Morrill moment? Just interaction with him, at any point, either during your career or after your time at Utah State. Like, what's just that moment that stands out in your interactions with Coach Morrill?
For me, I think Coach was always the same. He wasn't always, now you get some of the coaches rah, up and down. Coach was always the same with me. He always, whenever he had something to say, he'd pull me to the side and he'd talk to me, during the game. He was never that one that just, how some of the coaches they can get to the point where they can kind of almost, talking down to you, degrade you. Coach is never like that. We mess up, he would just tell us. I mean, that's the thing that, with me, that I think I liked the most was he would just talk to you and tell you. I mean, it was never yelling, screaming. Of course, sometimes he got on us or, not not going as hard and things like that. But it was never one moment I was like, man, the coach just, I was down after practice. It was. I mean, if we were messing up, he would let us know we were messing up, but he was never. He was always the same, and that's one of the things that I loved about playing for Coach.
So, how did you find out about, and I guess not only how did you find out, but like, what was it like for you when you learned that about the naming of the court after Stu Morrill? You found out that was going to be upcoming.
Deserving, very deserving. But I got an email and I opened it and read it, and Dion Bailey texted me. He's like, "Hey, you going?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course." I'm like, "For that, yeah, I'll definitely go for that." And I was just like, "Man, I mean, it's an honor. I mean, it's to have a coach to play for a coach that did enough for a school to name a court after him. I mean, that's awesome. So, I mean, I wouldn't miss it, and look forward to being there in this next coming weekend and checking them out."
That's one question I've asked of a couple of players. Like, how would you, years down the road, and as the Stu Morrill era gets further and further in the past, what would you want people to remember Coach Morrill for? Just not only his tenure, but him as a person.
I think he was fair, honest. I mean, he would tell you, like I said, what it is that he expected from you, what he wanted from you. And, I mean, always had us prepared for games. I mean, the scouting report, everything. I mean, he would, I remember we were playing Utah, and man, Coach, he was so fired up that day, and I'm like, "Coach, like, calm down, Coach." Like, I mean, he was just a coach. I mean, he was a coach, a player's coach that, you could talk to him. If you seen something, you could go to him. He would always say, "Hey, you guys got something, come to my office," or, talk to one of the assistant coaches, and, they'll get the message back to me. But, I only had a couple of times that I, went to his office and sat down and talked to him about some things, but he would all, he would listen, he would talk to us, and he was fair.
So, just how did playing at Utah State and Coach Morrill and just the whole experience? How did that impact you as you went throughout your post Utah State career? And I guess at the same time, lastly, what are you up to these days?
I mean, just lessons. I mean, it's just things of, like, I tell people now, I'm like sports taught me so much about just life stuff. I mean, about being on time, work, teammates, and as co-workers in life now, and just things like that Coach would always talk to us about. He set schedules, and we had to be there on time, and things like that. And like now, like, I work for the railroad now, and that's one of the biggest things is, like, time. Like, we don't have so much of a set schedule, but it's just the importance of, when it's time to go to work, hey, show up and work.
All right, again, this is Shawn Daniels, former Utah State star at with the Aggies and under Coach Morrill. Thank you so much for taking some time to join me and remembering Coach Morrill and also some of those great Aggie teams as well that you played on. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. No problem.